It's 22 hours GMT in Accra, 14 hours in Washington. Wherever you are, this is News at 10. You can follow our live stream on Facebook and on 3news.com. Let's begin the news with the major news highlights of the day. Ada residents of Azizanya Aigbo in the Adais district of the Greater Accra region are at risk of water and air pollution following a marine diesel spillage into the sea. Dead fishes have washed ashore 2 days after the spillage. And President Akufo-Addo says the Office of the Special Prosecutor will remove the fear of partisanship and put the fear of God in persons who may want to rob the country. Answering a range of questions at an encounter with the press at the Flagstaff House, the President, however, promised to strengthen the capacity of other investigative institutions. And the Public Services Commission has cautioned government to stop awarding post-retirement contracts to chief directors who performed abysmally during their term in office. According to the Commission, awarding them with the contracts fuels the perceived perception of non-performance and lack of credibility of the public service. And the Asokwa Juvenile Court has struck out the case involving 5 suspects in the Bantama gang rape case. The state attorney says one of the suspects is not a juvenile, hence the review. The suspects were discharged on earlier charges of conspiracy to defile and defilement, but were rearrested for trial in a circuit court. Those were our major news highlights. Remember, you can follow our live stream on Facebook and on 3news.com, and you can hear us live on 3FM 92.7. Up next is the big one. Welcome back. Now, President Akufo-Addo says the Office of the Special Prosecutor will remove the fear of partisanship and put the fear of God in persons who may want to rob the country. Answering a range of questions at an encounter with the press at the Flagstaff House, the President, however, promised to strengthen the capacity of other investigative institutions.
The encounter with the media was the second by the President since he assumed office early last year. The President recounted efforts made in his first year in office to improve the economy and accelerate development. Touching on the appointment of the Special Prosecutor, President Akufo-Addo was optimistic the office will deliver without fear or favor.
I'm well aware of the general sense of anxiety in the country and the strong feeling that politicians tend to get away with corrupt practices. A significant choice, though that Mr. Amidu is, I do not expect that he will provide all the answers, will deal with the phenomenon of corruption by public officials. But I do believe that at the least, the office will remove the fear of partisan prosecution and begin to put the fear of God in all public officials who are intending to go down the path of corruption. The current office holders are as likely to be investigated and prosecuted by the special prosecutor if a case is made out against them as past office holders.
He, however, promised to resource other investigative institutions. Answering a question on alleged corruption by his appointees on the infamous seat for cash saga, the President said he was satisfied with the ongoing parliamentary inquiry and explanations given by the Trade Minister.
I asked the Minister of Trade to give me an explanation to respond to the allegation that had been made in the public space. I was there at the occasion, and nobody had made me aware that there was anything like people buying money to sit next to me or anything. So it came as a surprise to me. And I asked for an explanation from him. And he gave me a full account of the process that had been undertaken, the monies that had been paid, the use of the monies, and I mean, a full accounting. I looked at it, I examined it with others, and was satisfied that it had responded to the allegation that had been made. And I believe the statement he made to me is the very same statement that he made to the committee. And it has been supported by virtually everybody who was involved in the organization of the event. So I believe that I was on firm ground in saying to myself that yes, an allegation has been made, it has been looked into, queries that I put on the matter have been responded to, and I'm satisfied with the quality of the responses that I have got. The fact that there is a public inquiry in it, in itself, to me, does not shake my own conviction that there was nothing untoward had taken place.
Right, let's get onto the telephone lines and speak with Dr. Erica Pugh, who is Head of Department of Communication Studies at the University of Cape Coast. Doc, thanks very much for joining us. So let me hear from you what were your heights of the questions asked today.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you quite well.
Right, so I'm asking what for you were the highest points, or I should say the best questions that were asked for the night.
The best questions.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening to your viewers. First of all, if you permit me, I think that it's a very important exercise, and I'm happy. I would like to congratulate the President for this effort. With respect to the highlight of the whole encounter, with respect to questions, I think that we all know there have been some ongoing discussions, and therefore Ghanaians are expected to hear more about certain major issues happening within the country. Within the limitations of the question and answer section, I would say the highlight for me was on the question on Guantanamo Bay detainees and Guantanamo Bay detainees and the issue of Galamsey. I think those were quite crucial. You know, quite a number of the questions did not touch to the core of what I think Ghanaians expect to hear.
When you say
homosexuality is there,
right? Okay.
And it came up again, the issue about sports and so on. But I think, if you permit me, I want to talk about certain crucial things that I expected, journalists to answer.
Right.
There was an opportunity for them to do so, or they decided not to do so. I expected media men and women to ask questions on health, health policy in this country and what the government is doing. Issue about railway and development, gender and social protection issue, how far inner city and Zongo development issues have gone, issues with respect to tourism and all of that. And I think that these are quite critical issues, and we expect that by this time that the government has spent 1 year in office, we would want to know what each major sector or each ministry is carrying out. And I think that some of the questions that came were quite on the periphery, and I feel strongly that most media men and women who were present there today missed the point. It's not a very easy encounter. These are rare occasions where media men and women get to interact with the first gentleman of the land. and it's a very huge responsibility for journalists to take advantage of this important occasion to ask crucial questions and issues that are at the core of our Ghanaian economy and our very lives.
Right. So, Doc,
questions that border on certain trivial issues, as if you've had just a wayside interaction with the president, was quite unfortunate.
Are there specifics of those ones you saw as trivial questions?
I don't want to appear to be taking on anybody, but largely what I want to also add is that I do not want to blame only the journalists. I think that because of the way the selection and all of that, and the time frame that was allotted for the question and answer session.
Right, but overall, how will you assess the
opportunity to ask certain critical or crucial questions?
But overall, how would you assess the responses given by the president on some of the issues that were raised? For example, he spoke about employment figures, World Cup report, and all of that. For you, how do you gauge the responses in relation to the questions that were put to him?
I think largely the president was sincere. He was straight to the point, and you could clearly see through him that he is just telling us what he knows. And, you know, there are times that these issues or such encounters are stage managed. This wasn't that thing. You could see that, the things that he felt he didn't have ready answers, he had to even call the Greek minister and the minister in charge of port and how was to come in to provide relevant information.
Right, Doctor.
And I think that is quite important, that the president allows the people of Ghana to know how sincere he is so far as his administration is concerned. He has been given a 4-year mandate, and in accounting to us after his first year, we want to see sincerity, we want to see genuine response, we want to see things just as they are. And I think that is very important. It might not have looked as an over-refined rhetorical presentation, but that presentation that exudes sincerity on behalf of the president, I think is commendable.
Right.
You may not like his style, the way he did everything, but I think that being sincere and not to appear to be overstage managed is quite crucial, and it's quite important in showing how sincere you are to the people which you are supposed to account to.
Right, Doc, we're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Dr. Erica Pugh Mensah is with the Department of Communications at the University of Cape Coast. Let's move away. Still remaining at the presidency. President Akufo-Addo says government saved some 145 million Ghana cedis in 2017 due to prudent management of the economy. Speaking at his second encounter with the media, the president said the amount saved provides incentives to open government procurement. Let's quickly, we're going on Skype now to speak with Collins Ajiman Sapong, who is president of the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supply. Good evening, sir, and thank you extremely for your time.
Good evening, Auntie.
So the president more like is touting his government's achievements with streamlining procurement, if I might put it that way. Do you see a lot of improvement in the lapses of previous procurement processes and how this government has conducted it?
Well, I will first of all say that to say whether there's been improvement or not will be quite difficult for us. But I can boldly say that last year there were a lot of talks about procurement, and there was the commitment, from the things that the president, the vice, and the minister for in charge of public sector procurement. It's a form of commitment to making sure that procurement is done right in the country. But as to say that, yes, there's been improvement, unless I'm privy to the way procurement are really conducted within the public sector.
All right, so Right. But the president said that government has more like reduced sole sourcing by up to 37% within its first year. And the figure dropped from 622 requests in 2016 to 394 requests in 2017. Would you say that is good news?
Well, from the professional side, yes, sole source is a method that we use. It's not illegal to use single source or sole source. But again, when you look at the number from professional side, we wish that we will have zero sole source or restricted tendering. But it's quite difficult to achieve that because the default method for every procurement process should be a competitive tendering. But certain situations present normally will require the procurement entity or the officer in charge of the procurement to use either sole source or restricted tendering.
But let's still stay on this restricted tendering thing. The figures indicate that in 2017, restricted contracts, according to the president, dropped by 42%. In 2016, the NDC government approved 587 or 99.15% of all restricted tenders requested for. What do we mean by restricted tender? And if a government gives out contract, that much percentage of contracts, over 90%. Is it something that we should have been worried then and should be worried now?
Well, like I said initially, restricted tendering is also part of the procurement methods. In Section 38 of the Act 63, as amended in Act 914, says that once the item that being bought is of a high complex nature and specialized, or you have a less number of suppliers or vendors dealing in that particular goods, then you can go to PPA for approval for them to allow you to do your restricted tendering. Also, when you run a tender, and at the end of the tender, you are unable to come up with the final bidder, then the ones that you think were good, you can now walk to them or recommend them for approval for you to re-engage them. That is when the restricted tendering comes in. By sitting here as professionals, the numbers reducing from whatever figure to whatever figure is not something. I feel that we need to know how much each one is costing and all, and the reason for the restricted tendering, because you can have 1,000 restricted tendering requests where with cogent reasons all will be approved, or you may have 50 restricted tendering requests and they may be turned down. So from the professional side, it's quite difficult to say that the numbers have reduced and therefore, we should jump and clap, because 1,000, if the reasons are fine, you have to approve. 2, if the reasons are not good, you have to reject.
Right. Thank you very much. Collins Ajiman Sapong is the president of the National Procurement Association of Ghana. This is still News at 10, and you're watching us live from the News Hub at Addis Ababa. You can also hear us on 3FM 92.7. We'll have more news for you. Please stay. Welcome back. Now, the National House of Chiefs President Dr Erica Pugh has appealed to the Commission of Inquiry into the creation of new regions to ensure fairness in their decision-making. He insisted any attempt to compromise fairness would defeat the purpose of the exercise and create disputes. Dr Erica Pugh, who was speaking at a House of Chiefs meeting, at the Commission in Ho.
The Commission of Inquiry into the creation of new regions has begun wider consultation and public education after its preliminary works endorsed the 2016 campaign promise. This week is dedicated to the Volta region, one of the regions earmarked to be split. The meeting with the House of Chiefs was the second and seeks to keep stakeholders abreast with the tenets of the constitutional mandate. Minister for Regional Reorganization and Development Dan Kwekuboche and the chairman of the Commission on the Creation of New Regions, Justice Stephen Brobe, addressed the meeting.
And I drew your attention to the fact that Chapter 2 of our Constitution talks about the territories of Ghana. And it has only 2 chapters, only 2 articles, Article 4 and 5. And I implore that as much as possible, we shall all try to study and address ourselves to the provisions of the Constitution, Article 5.
These consultations are fact-finding in nature and will assist the Commission in forming a view on whether there is a need and substantial demand for the creation of a new region in the northern part of the Volta region. There is therefore a duty on all of us to ensure that we chart a course that is ultimately in the best interest of our people.
President of the National House of Chiefs, Togbi Ahweda, called for absolute fairness and transparency in the decisions-making process.
If there has to be development, of course, there must be peace and there must be unity. That is why in the conduct of this exercise that will determine whether or not a region is created, everything must be done to ensure that there is fairness so that the outcomes will be acceptable to the majority and invariably to all.
The consultative meeting continues across the region to Saturday, January 20 at Ho, Krachi, Nkwanta, Pasa and Nsuta Buem.
And the Danish Minister for Development Cooperation, Yola Tornes, says Denmark will continue to aid Ghana in the area of domestic tax mobilization. He gave the assurance during a visit to the Tema port.
The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has estimated that tax could provide an extra income of around $300 billion if tax collection increased in developing countries by just 1%. This is more than twice the total international official development assistance given to developing countries today. Minister for Development Cooperation Yola Tornes and the Minister for Taxation Carsten Lorenzen paid a 2-day visit to Ghana to learn Ghana's experience in increasing domestically generated revenue. This will help in future Danish efforts to support tax systems in developing countries. At the Tema port, the delegation were taken through some of the processes at the Gateway Services Limited. Minister for Development Cooperation Yola Tornes assured of Denmark's support to Ghana in its tax collection efforts.
Ghana has turned into to become a middle-income country. Through this, I mean, it's absolutely natural that we have changed our partnership and our cooperation, and now we will in the future focus more on trade and commercial issues as well as taxation. We have changed from a focus on traditional development aid and assistance to trade relations and political cooperation and partnerships.
The 2 Danish ministers acquainted themselves with royalties collection from the mining sector. Minister for Taxation Carsten Lorenzen stated some of the revenues from Denmark's oil are put into its social welfare system.
It goes into the state budget, and then it's not being used for anything specific, but it's of course being used for healthcare, for schools, and for our welfare state. And the big difference between, I think, Ghana and Denmark is that we pay a lot more in tax in Denmark. I think we pay a little bit too much.
Commissioner General of Ghana Revenue Authority indicated the visit will have a positive impact of revenue collection.
It allows them to get the sense of what they are doing for us. When I explained about our tax system and the challenges and the way forward and the potential and everything, they came in a record that theirs is no different. So now when we are collaborating with each other, we know the kind of support we may be asking for.
That's how we wrap up with News at 10. Thanks for staying with us. On behalf of the crew here, good night.